Hello everybody, this is the 8th and final week of this Introduction to Unified Mindfulness course, and this is the last video I'll be sending where I will just briefly go over the 5 techniques that we've covered and then the content of the last class, which is the 4 pillars of the rhythm of your mindfulness practice throughout your life. So last week we talked about some ways to build mindfulness into your daily life with a formal period of practice in stillness, that 10-minute period that can be so difficult to schedule, but that makes a big difference. There's also options to practice that formal time or some other formal time in motion. So I think we've talked about this a little bit, and obviously the autumn move technique would be a part of that practice in motion. But there's also the micro practice. That's anything less than 10 minutes all the way down to like 5 seconds, where you put 100% of your attention into implementing a technique. And then there's background practice, where say as I'm talking and recording this video, for instance, I might be just kind of keeping track of what's going on in the body through flow or feel flow, which I tend to fall to as a background practice. That doesn't involve 100% of your attention, maybe just 15 or 20% of your attention, or even less. It's just kind of in the back of your mind, knowing that your mindfulness intention is there. If you put a full technique in the background, that's fine. Or you might just focus on one of the skills, focus on cultivating concentration or sensory clarity, really keeping track of detail of your experience, or try to kind of have equanimity in the back of your mind, letting things come and go without resisting, without fighting them, letting objects of your experience be like, a common analogy is like clouds and you're the sky. Okay, so there's no fighting the clouds come, they go, sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, and you just let them do their thing. So those are the ways to practice in daily life: formal practice, micro practice, background practice. And there are some ways to deal with different obstacles or opportunities that we covered last time. But today there's 4 pillars of maintaining a rhythm of mindfulness practice throughout life, coming from this unified mindfulness system that I'm going to outline really briefly, and then talk about one final technique, do some practice, and that'll be that. So the 4 pillars: practice in daily life, retreat practice, getting support, and giving support. Okay, so really quickly through each of these. Life practice, or practice in life, is basically what we've been covering through this course. That's the practice in stillness or in motion, the micro practice, the background practice. All of that is considered practice in life. That's your daily routine and ways that you go from day to day using mindfulness techniques. Retreat practice can be really challenging to access. Fortunately, there's more and more options to do retreats remotely. So there's virtual retreat opportunities quite a lot. And for unified mindfulness, what qualifies as a retreat, which is a more extended period of time of formal practice, unbroken formal practice, be that in stillness or in motion, the kind of requirements for that is 4 hours. Okay, so if you take 4 hours on your own at your home, or with a friend, or whatever, you hike or something like that, that could feasibly be considered a retreat practice. But it is basically, you clock in, you remain as much as possible in formal engagement with some practice or another for that duration. It doesn't mean you sit for 4 hours. That means that, although you could feasibly, but you sit some period of that, practice in stillness, and you may get up and do some walking meditation. You could even do some light activities and make that a formal practice. But the requirements for a retreat is for that to be 4 hours. There are lots of options. You can do half-day retreats. I know there's some, if you're local to Spartanburg, Asheville has a couple of retreat places where they do half-day retreats. And then, of course, there's more long-term residential retreats, too, where you go for several days or longer. But again, there's many online options, and you could do even a multi-day retreat from home, too. Unified Mindfulness provides for that. They have monthly home retreat practice programs that you can enter into, and they're really cheap comparatively. So I would encourage you all to try that if you have the inclination to do so. So that's retreat practice. The third pillar is getting support. So that can look a lot of different ways. You can have a formal professional or paraprofessional coach or a mentor who you treat as like a teacher. It's really important to remain in the attitude of a student through these things, so it's good to have some sort of mentor or a teacher. But on a more casual level, just having peer-to-peer, like buddy system kind of how's your practice going relationships is a really big part of getting support. So you're kind of setting up accountability systems around yourself with other people, even if it's really informal, just to make sure that you basically don't leave your practice behind. So getting support, and that might also include really specific problem-solving types of things. Like if you bump into something in your daily practice that makes it really hard for you to continue, or that is really challenging for you, or something that really rewarding that happens that you don't really know what to do with, which can happen, then that's something that you might reach out to others for a little bit of more guided support. Or lastly, in those 4 pillars, and then we'll do some practice, is giving support. So not all of us are mindfulness coaches or teachers, and some people end up moving that direction to do that completely or fully as their career, and part of that might involve how you can give support also by financially donating to people who do that. Not myself, I mean like people who only do that during their day. But other ways of giving support could include just maybe even starting a small group in a church or in your community or neighborhood that sits every once in a while together. You don't have to be the facilitator or the teacher, but you could kind of get things started. But on a more subtle level, giving support could be just simply sharing with friends and family what mindfulness practices have done for you. It doesn't mean you're trying to coax them into doing them themselves, but simply sharing the benefits that you've noticed, or the interesting engagement in this practice that you've noticed. But on a very subtle level, and possibly the more important even, is simply really deeply showing up to every situation. And this is something that ties into your practice in life too, because the way that you share what could be considered like the gift of mindfulness is to be as fully and deeply present in all of life's situations. And what that means is that you'll positively influence others around you. And that is a form of giving support to others, giving mindfulness support to others. So that's more indirect, but can be profound nonetheless. All right, so that's the 4 pillars really quickly summed up, and the topic for this week. Lastly, what I'd like to do is describe really quickly a very interesting and possibly challenging and possibly somewhat fun class technique to try on. It's technically and literally the simplest meditation technique you'll ever hear about. It's called Do Nothing. So in Do Nothing, there is actually a little bit of something. There are 2 simple instructions. Let whatever happens happen, and whenever you notice an intention to control your attention, drop that intention. Okay, so whatever happens, happen. Let whatever happens, happen. And then whenever you notice an intention to control your attention, that means you're not looking for intention, you're not vigilant for it, you're not checking it out, you're not tracking it or monitoring, just whenever you notice an intention to control your attention or to guide your thoughts or to engage in observation of your feelings or anything. So what that means is you'll probably get lost in thought a lot, and that's fine in this technique. The instructions just say, whenever you notice an intention to control, drop that intention. So when we say drop that intention, that doesn't mean get rid of what we're thinking, feeling, hearing, seeing, whatever. It just means that our will or our volition or our intention to control or to manipulate the way we are focusing our attention or whatever we're noticing, that is dropped. All of the stuff that you get lost in, all the thoughts and feelings and stuff, they may still be there. And they may pull you away again, that's fine. This technique is very, very open, very permissive. It is a drilling down of equanimity. It is very much just anything is okay, and I'm not going to control any of it. I'm not going to attempt to control any of it. Okay, so what I'd suggest is experiment with this. We're going to do a 10-minute practice period here right now. And I'll just very, very occasionally give a couple of reminders, maybe just reciting those instructions again. Because there's not much I can instruct you to do because you're not doing anything. And the only thing that you're asked, in fact, to do is to do less. So when you notice yourself trying to control, trying to manipulate, drop that intention to control or to do, to mentally act at all. Okay, so let's do some of that and then we'll conclude. This happened to be the best angle for my video, but this is my dog's perch, so if you happen to notice seeing or hearing him, you can just make that something that you notice, and if you also notice an intention to control your attention toward or away from that, then you can drop that intention, make it a part of your practice. Okay, so let's do a 10-minute period where you find yourself in an upright and alert but relaxed posture. Let your body settle into itself while your spine remains upright and straight, relaxing some muscles. Remembering that your instructions are simply to let whatever happens, happen. And whenever you notice an intention to control your attention, drop that intention. Remember that this practice is an emphasis or a focus on the skill of equanimity. That means that there's nothing to do, nothing to change, nothing to wish for, nothing to avoid. Simply let whatever happens, happen. And whenever you might notice any intention to control your attention, drop that intention. Whenever you notice any effort or expectation, drop those things.